Hello and welcome. I'm Sal Gordon Smith. We done one session together before, one podcast, and it was great to meet you at the time. And I wanted to return so that we could do another session where I find out more about you. Whereas before, you just let me talk, and I thought it'd be more interesting to hear you instead for a change. So if you'd like to share something about yourself, please.
Okay, so I have two lives. I have many lives, but two lives principally. One life is where I work with my wife and we teach Spanish. We live here in Spain. We've had a business for the last sort of 20 years now where we help people to learn Spanish. It's very beautiful. At the same time, 20 years ago, I started to learn therapy, to do therapy, NLP, hypnosis, and all kinds of alternative therapies. And so that's kind of been my other world as well. So I have these two worlds in which I live. The therapy started off as something very, very part-time, very much my hobby. Little by little, it's become more and, more sort of prolific. And it's very beautiful. I love it. And I work with, I just, I have a couple of days a week where I work with people and do therapy. So that's lovely, just as I wanted. And then in addition to that, 4 years ago, I was contacted by some light workers who wanted me to share a message. And so I started doing that. And so what I've done is I've kind of used my therapy public and created a new public and basically just shared the message out there. That's what I've been doing for the last 4 years. Beautiful journey. It's a beautiful journey, and I'm very thrilled that I was given the privilege of having a message. But I'm one of many. I'm aware of. I'm one of many, and as time moves on, it seems that we are more and more people are receiving information and sharing it. So there's a beautiful time at the moment.
Okay, so when you said that 4 years ago you became a light worker, just a label really, but something happened to you. What were you doing at the time?
Meditating. So, well, if you want the sort of the backstory to it. So I was very aware of a therapeutic process using plant medicine. Okay, so I was aware of it, and I was attracted to the possibilities of using ayahuasca.
Right.
But I wasn't in a position. I had a family. I wasn't in a position to be swanning off to Peru and all of that. So it just so happened that somebody here in Spain that I know from Peru said to me that there was a shaman who did the work here. So I went with a friend who'd already been there, and I had this many incredible sessions. But within the session of ayahuasca, I was told, start to meditate. You must meditate. It was a very strong message over and over and over again. I've been doing hypnosis, self-hypnosis for all of them since my 20s, but I hadn't been meditating. Self-hypnosis is different. You've got a constant dialogue going on inside and stuff like that. So I came back from that weekend. I sat down and I started to meditate. And 10 minutes into the meditation, these beings came in and started moving my body, and basically through yes and no, they told me that they'd been waiting for me to do this so they could come and contact me, and they had a job for me. So that's kind of how it happened.
So the obvious question here is, because of your religious background, how did you know they weren't devils?
I've just released a video on that, actually, because somebody asked that very question. How do you know that there weren't, the devil appears as an angel of light. That's what they say,
So they say, yes.
So they say, yeah. So what I did, I was very aware of that. And so, what I'm aware of is this. And I did a lot of research on people who were being contacted by not good beings who weren't good. And there was always this pattern. the same pattern, which is they come through and they're very beautiful and lovely and, make you feel better and make you feel wonderful. But very soon they ask you to start to do things that go against what you might say your own principles. And it's the way it works is the same way as the story of Jesus with the devil. If after he'd been fasting for 40 days, and the devil said, just do one act of worship to me. And I'll give you all of this, but you must do one act of worship. And I think that pattern stands once, if you're communicating with beings, if they start asking you to do something that makes you feel not good, that's a big red flag. So I was aware of that. I did a couple of things to protect myself, Sal. Whenever I started a session, I always started the session with my mantra, which is for the highest good of all concerned. That's always protected me. I've always used it in my therapies because obviously you can get into some interesting things with people. So I've always started with for the highest good of all concerned. I've always believed that protects me. And I think the belief protects me, if you understand. Mm. So now I've been doing it for 4 years. What I'm aware of is that the emissaries have never asked me to do anything that makes me feel uncomfortable or doesn't align with my principles. And if anything, all they've ever done is to bring beauty into my life. So, the emissary, I was asking the emissaries about this, my light workers, and I said, what about this? How do I know? And they said, well, the expression is the devil appears as an angel of light, but that's when he appears, but he doesn't maintain it. There's no maintenance of an angel of light. It's just the initial appearance to trick you, So that's not what I see with the emissaries. I don't see that. I see this very constant, same message, never changes. Everything's okay. Everything's as it should be. Everything's going to be fixed. So that's the kind of message that they give,
So could you perhaps tell us a bit more about the message as you understand it?
Okay. I've been doing this for 4 years. Goodness, we've talked about everything. But right at the beginning, they said, we have a message of great hope for mankind during this period of the Great Awakening. Okay, and so their message has always been, we've moved out of the dark ages, we're moving into the light ages, if you think of it in a cyclical way, that we're in the Great Awakening, we're in this process, people are waking up, not everybody's awake yet, but we're in this process. And then we're going to move out of the darkness into the light, and then gradually we're going to move around the cycle, and it's going to get better and better. That's basically the way that they say it. We're in this cycle. We've done the dark, we've done the horrible, we've done the control, and now we're coming out. And we're in the age of, we've moved into the age of light. And what that means, that doesn't mean that it's good. Because we've been in the darkness, we didn't see anything. We were blind. We thought everything was okay. We were just in the dark. The light is, as another scripture says, the light gets gradually brighter. As the light is increasing, we are seeing more and more bad things. We're starting to see, it's like lifting the rock. We're seeing what the dickens is going on in this world, and it's horrible. So people are making the false assumption that it's getting worse. But it's not getting worse. This has always been here. It's just been illuminated now. And so it's the illumination that creates the Great Awakening. It's the Great Awakening that creates the change in people. And we are the ones who are going to change this. There are no, as far as I'm aware, there's going to be no savior. It's actually our intention, our developing and ascending in an energetic way that's going to bring this about.
And do they tell you how people have to change, how they will change, what will facilitate the process?
Yeah. They're pushing. There's a while ago that they said, by the way, all of that stuff is done now. And the kind of, when I talk about that stuff, we were going through the plan, stroke, demic, all of that. They said, that's all done now. Now we've got to start focusing on our own self-development. We've got to start developing ourselves. What their focus is on I mean, they gave me a course on how to help the ego to ascend. So what they said is, for us to be able to move to a new level, we must ascend the ego, because the ego, as they say, was designed to keep us almost like a controlling mechanism for whilst we were in the dark, so that we didn't go shooting off anywhere. And so what they're saying is the ego now, many people talk about the death of the ego, the one to get rid of the ego. And they said, no, the ego has a job, but it has a new job now. And so what they're saying is, what we need to do is to create what you would call, well, the ascended ego. I don't want to use super ego because that's been used. The ascended ego, which is the ego that actually starts to help us to improve ourselves, rather than giving us a hard time for being who we are, making comparisons with other people, comparisons with other things. So that's been a big focus on them, is that we need, through a series of self-improvement, we need to raise our vibe. We need to raise ourselves up. And it's our job. So there are two things happening. One is that the frequency of the place that we reside in is increasing. And so everybody is increasing. The frequency is increasing. It's not something that we can choose. However, there's a band that we can be within. And we can be low down in that frequency band, or we can be high up. They want us to move high up to the maximum and keep pushing as this band moves. They said it's constantly in flux. It's every day, every moment, every second. The frequency is increasing as we continue on this journey. And so they want us to keep pushing ourselves to the front end of that through self-improvement, through self-love, self-worth, and self-esteem, self-value, through helping the ego to ascend. So basically that's their message.
Right. I've got a simile for that, to describe that. And what I say is that the whole of humanity is in the same boat. Yeah. So no one's outside the boat. We're all in the same boat. However, the majority of the people, they're at the back of the boat.
Boats like that.
Yes. And there's those few of us who happen to be at the front of the boat. And the fact that humanity is at the back of the boat, pushing the boat upwards, it means we can see that little bit further.
Okay.
So those of us who are at the front of the boat, we've got a greater vision of where we need to go, where we're going. However, we couldn't do that unless we had the ballast of the rest of them at the back.
Sure.
Because we're all in the same boat.
Yeah, no, I like that.
So we're all bound. We're all bound.
Sure.
Yeah, we can't escape each other in that sense.
No, I like it.
So what about, if I dare ask your wife, when you began to tell her about your experiences, did she just accept them? Did she think, going a little bit loopy here?
well, my wife is, we're both exactly on the same journey. She's an awakened soul. She's a lot more practical than I am in terms of, how she looks at life, and more pragmatic, perhaps. But I'm blessed to have a very supportive wife. So when I told her, I was more embarrassed than she was that I was telling her that. And she kind of said, okay. Her concern was, let's not make this affect our business, our language business. And I said, don't worry, these are two worlds. I mean, the language business has nothing to do with what I'm doing. But really, she's been completely supportive. Obviously, at the beginning, it's like, where's this come from? And I'd not long been to use ayahuasca. So she obviously, I think she may have had her thoughts about, I can see what's happened here. He's got, what trastorno, I don't know what it's called. He's got a thing. Yeah. So little by little, she's kind of really come on board. She's not I don't tell her every conversation I have with them, but she's pretty much on board. She's pretty much on board, but she's more like she's my anchor. She helps to anchor me in reality too. Because, when you live in, and I know you have the same experience, when you spend a lot of time in that area, sometimes you can perhaps lose a little bit of touch with what's happening, in the matrix.
Yeah. For me, slightly different in that my connection with my channel, Charlie, it happens through my body, through muscle testing.
Yes.
So as long as I can visualize and connect him with my feelings and with my emotions, with my sense of Charlie, then I talk in ordinary language, and I just listen to my hand giving me yes and no answers.
Yeah.
So I don't actually go into any flights of visions or whatever. However, I do get images come through as I do whatever I'm doing, whether I'm working with clients, whether I'm writing articles. So for me, it's feet on the ground.
Yeah.
I don't go anywhere. I'm here. In a way, he and I are pretty much one of the same at such moments.
Yeah.
So, and that's different from, I've experienced quite a few channels over the years, and they tend to put their ego out of the way. And then they don't remember what they've been saying because they're not there. And for me, it's different. My ego is here. It's just not engaged so much. It's on the sidelines.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I remember everything every conversation. I communicate whilst I'm running, because when I'm running, I'm extremely centered, and I'm only aware of what I'm aware of. And I have a conversation, and then I get my phone out and I record what we talked about. So while it's still fresh in my mind. Yeah. But yeah, what I find is that at the beginning they connected only with yes and no, and they were yes and no with my head, and they were using my body. But after a little bit, I was aware that they started using other channels of communication. Like I could just words would just come into my head, words. But now it's more like I have to create the words. They give me the knowing. And then I have to make my words up to explain what that is. It's not always easy, because sometimes I think, well, how do I explain that? But that's kind of how they do it now. And very, very often they give me visions, like metaphor. But it's nearly always a metaphor, a vision of a metaphor, and go, oh, wow, oh, that's nice. And they give me good ways of explaining something that might in other ways be a bit more complex than, than normal.
That's nice.
So
you've got a very religious background.
Yeah.
And how does that influence you in the present? Because it's a very rigid belief system that you've come from.
Sure.
And a lot of you daren't question it because that's you're out of the group.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. So I was brought up as a Jehovah's Witness. I left when I was 20, and I was thrown out when I was 21, because I left. But so I was brought up on the Bible. Okay, so what happened was during my 20s and my 30s, I was very anti-Bible. I was very anti-Bible, extremely anti-religion, and I still am. I'm not anti-religion. I'm not interested in religion. Okay. Religion has nothing to do with God as far as I can see. So what happens, I've done this full circle, Sal, and it's really interesting. I'm aware of it, that I listen to other people like your work, other people who are getting information, and their slant has perhaps nothing to do with religion at all, nothing to do with the Bible. I'm aware that my slant, I've come back around, and what I've seen is that everything that's happening around us, basically I already knew about because it mentioned it in the Bible. You know, the parallels are everywhere. And so what I'm aware of is that the Bible has something. It has something, almost like a little code book. But never would I say the Bible's the word of God. You know, and we should fundamentally believe everything because there's so much awful things in the Bible as well. So many awful things. But I'm aware that my slant, I will quote from the Bible just because I think, wow, that's what it said. And this is what we're seeing. So I'm aware that I do kind of lean toward that, but lean away from any kind of religion completely. You know, I mean, the Jehovah's Witness religion to this day still causes me major, major problems because half of my family won't speak to me because their religion won't allow it, you know. So I'm fully aware of what religion is, and I'm fully aware of what the Bible can offer in bits, and I'm very aware of what a relationship with God is, which has nothing to do with religion. So it's been a beautiful. I'm glad that I was a Jehovah's Witness. I really am glad. It helped me to be where I am now and to find some balance, you know.
So where does the end times come in here? Because you know, the emissaries give you information. You've got your childhood indoctrination of the whole purpose of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
So where does that leave you in all that potpourri?
Okay, yeah. Well, it leaves me in the place where what I'm aware of where we are now. So there's these stages of Armageddon that we're always taught, yeah, which is the Great Tribulation. And you know, the end times, the Bible talks about the signs of the end, you know this, you know, the end's here when you see X, Y, Z. Okay. But I believe that we are in what's called the Great Tribulation. We're in it now. We are living it. I mean, these are awful times to be living. These are awful, tough times for everybody who's awake. And for the people who are not awake yet, these are horribly tough times. They just don't know why they're horribly tough times. But also, the last book of the Bible is called the Revelation for a good reason, because that's where we are. We're in the period of revelation where everything is revealed, everything is shown for what it is, and comes back to the what I was saying about the light is coming on and everything's being revealed, and we are all like this saying, "What is this? What are we living in? You know, what's going on around us?" Mm-hmm. So that's the period that we're in. It's a beautiful time, and it's a very tough time. And you know, which is easier? Would it be easier to go through this period asleep, or would it be easier to go through awake? I mean, I would never ever choose to go back to sleep. But my guess is that if you're asleep to everything, it might just be very frustrating for you, but you don't know why, you know. Whereas for us, it's like, whoa, it's like mega frustration at times because it's not moving fast enough, or we want it to move faster than what it is. I mean, you've got my emissaries never put time frames on anything; they won't. But the people who, or the beings that you communicate with, they do give you time frames, don't they?
Yeah, they answer my questions.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure.
I mean, I've got the end time date, month, and day.
I know you told me last time. Just remind me of it. What is it? It's far away yet.
Is March between the 9th and 10th in 2046. Wow. Now, interestingly enough, if we digress, there's a guy who what's his name? Let me just find him for you. 1 second. He's been obsessed with hold on a minute. Subscriptions. This guy, he's been obsessed since the 60s with his history as well as the Talmud, the Jewish writings. But more than that, it's to do with the actual alphabet, the Jewish alphabet.
Mhm.
And he's also come up with a date. He's followed his own method, and he's mathematically come to this place, and he's made it in October of 2046.
Wow.
The same thing that the sun goes nova. And he's quite fun to listen to. He can be a bit hard at times. 1 second, and I will tell you. Why is this not happening? Hold on. Here we go. Right, all subscriptions. Here we go. Show more. Diehold Foundation. So it's the Diehold Foundation, and his name is not there, obviously. Let's choose one of these, see whether the name comes up. I think it's Richard Ball. Mr. Bogt. He's got anyway, Diehold Foundation. That's him. Anyway, he's in there. He's getting sidetracked.
Oh, I can't. Are you playing him? I can't hear him.
No, I'm hearing you. Oh no, it's me.
Aha.
Apologies. That was me. I'll cut that bit out. Anyway, yeah, he. So since the 60s, that's, if you think about it, 60 years this guy's been churning, and his perspective is that the Jewish language, the alphabet, is actually mathematical symbols, through which to explain everything. And he's used that to create a theory which led him to say, this has happened before, and it's going to happen on October 2046, when the sun once more will go nova, and huge cataclysm on the earth. So, he's interesting. I mean, in his own way, he's interesting.
Sure.
I mean, it's not the same way as I share it, but nevertheless, we've come to a very, very similar conclusion, except me, I've just been told, but he's come to that conclusion through exploration. And he also says that when the sun goes nova, what it releases turns into little glassy pebbles that will hit the earth, apart from other things. And he's been exploring the desert, and he's allegedly found these little beads from previous events.
Okay.
So anyway, it's interesting to listen to.
So your the date that you were given, because you were mentioning that obviously it's a cataclysm for the earth, but it's not the end of mankind. That mankind continue. So just remind me of what you were told. What happens at that point when that happens? What happens to us?
Well, this is cookie territory, of course. We're not going to the Bin Miam Scotty.
Of course.
But according to Charlie, there's 167 spaceships from another alien race, who I call the true humans, because they're the ones who gave us some of their DNA 500 million years ago, which is what has allowed us to develop to who we are today, from these simian apes that we used to be at the time. And they are here to help us to leave this planet, because this planet is at the mercy of, I think you've got an equivalent to the critters.
Mm-hmm.
David Icke calls them the archons from the
Yeah.
Gnostic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the same sort of thing. So there's an influence which affects mankind, and this time around it's become too much. Normally that influence has always been there, but the preponderance of low-level souls compared to souls which have been here a few times, who've learned to work with the physical body. Because if you think about it, the physical body, it's not easy to be in control of, to be in charge of, because we are biological, we are at the mercy of our biology through fear. If you look at all animals exist by a fear, and that fear is what allows them to fight off enemies, either by running or fighting. So it's a survival tactic. It's very important. Fear is really important
Mm-hmm.
at a sort of biological sense, because what the fear does, it instigates the hormonal system to activate various energy processes and immune processes within the body so that we can defend ourselves or run. So it's hugely important. But in our present life, it's become dystopian insofar as it's there all the time. People are in a state of anxiety most of the time.
Mm.
And that anxiety means that the body is operating in the sympathetic mode of fight-flight rather than the parasympathetic mode of relaxation.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it wasn't always like that. So that's where we are. And so we're born, the soul comes into the body, we're born. And from the get-go, from the day we're born, we are subjected to events that will create anxiety within us by our parents, by bullies at school, and then by the indoctrination of our society. Everything indoctrinates our ego. It fills us up with rules and regulations at the mental level, with emotions which have been suppressed by the mind at the emotional level. So we don't see the world clearly, and we're always frightened. And learning to be in our body and take control of this system so that we are not at the mercy, you might call it waking up, not being at the mercy of all these different parts of our system which are not working properly. Well, not everybody manages it, and not everybody has managed it for the last 7,000-8,000 years. Before that, at the time of the Atlanteans, before the previous cataclysm, it was different. There were always younger souls coming in, learning how to survive in a body which can so easily put us into fear mode, and therefore it dictates our movements and our behavior. So learning that, well, there were older souls who could teach the younger souls. And so there was a procession where you had the more enlightened ones and the less enlightened ones. And so the more psychopathic natured ones, the younger souls, they were kept in check. But after the last cataclysm, they weren't kept in check, and they gradually took over, and they became the norm. They were the ones who were in charge. And so here we are today, and we've reached the point where that balance needs to change. So we went from the dark, i.e., all these psychopathic souls being in charge, ruling the roost, to now, when that is being overturned, and those of us who are older souls who've been at the mercy of the younger souls, now it's actually harder, because we haven't had the teachings from the older souls as we were growing up to help us. we are actually, we've been around a few times, we know what it's like, but we've started at the bottom. So we need to do a speed learning. We need to quickly wake up and quickly take charge of our bodies and quickly be in control so that we can generate the feeling energy required, the vibrational energy required, so that when these true human aliens come, they can take us with them. Well, not me, I'm staying behind, but those of you who are going to go, you can go with them because your vibration, your feeling energy has evolved to a certain level so that you are compatible with them.
Mm-hmm.
Because our reality and their reality is widely different. Right now, the majority of the group, the majority of people are in darkness. They may not think so, but they are in darkness. And these true humans, they're in light. Well, you don't need to be fully in light with them, but you need to be enough in light that you can actually go with them. But that will only apply to about 2/3 of humanity. The other 1/3 will stay behind. So the answer to your question is, this will happen, and most people who are left behind will die. But some will survive, and there's a place in Africa, which Charlie told me about, and it's there on my website. And so there's a small section of the world which will survive the cataclysm, because when the earth stops and the tsunamis, because the waters keep moving, the waters will have to go across Africa. And by the time they get to this place, which is beyond the mountains, all of that will have stopped and is in the right location, so it will survive whatever damage comes from the sun, whether it's to do with heat, burning, whatever. It will be tough. I wouldn't like to survive there, to be honest. It'll be Mad Max times 10, because it'll be the worst of people who are there. Because the only ones who are left behind are the psychopaths.
Yeah.
Everyone else is gone. So those who are left behind, I mean, no, that's a bit of an exaggeration. There's loads of others who are not quite psychopaths, but nevertheless, they're so damaged that they will not be able to reach the level. So they will be staying behind, but humanity will continue. But unfortunately, they will still be at the mercy of the critters, the archons, call them what you will. And so the ascension of humanity towards the light, towards development, will again take a couple of cycles. So,
yeah,
but, dark and white, it keeps going.
I mean, it's interesting, again, that's not anything very far away. I see lots of parallels between what you're telling me, what the emissaries tell me, what the Book of Revelation talks about. It talks about two waves. One wave, I believe the Bible to be metaphors. Jesus comes on a white horse. He takes away the people who are ready to be taken away, and behind stay the ones who don't want to go, who aren't ready. They stay there and they live under the power of the devil, the same as always. And then later on, Jesus comes back and gets them as well. So everybody, so it's a very similar...
eventually, yes.
Eventually, yeah.
Sure.
And, the emissaries have always said that there will be a group that will refuse to ascend,
Ooh.
Yeah.
I can say something about that.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll tell you something about that. Tell me more.
So they say that there's a group that will refuse, that will want to stay because they're tied to that, and so they won't come, they won't ascend, however that separation is. And again, you have information that's very detailed, and the emissaries talk in very, very broad terms. That's not their remit is not to go into detail. Their remit is just to tell people that there's hope. Yeah. That's kind of it. But so go on, tell me about
It's important. Well, the way it began for me, because it's all, I have to ask questions to get the answers. is, well, what happens to me at the end? I said, no, you're dying. I'm not going into the spaceships. I'll be 94. He says, but you will be going back to Spain.
Okay.
And I'll be setting up a center in Spain. And at the end of the day, about 200 million of us, we won't all be in Spain, but 200 million of us will actually stay behind. And the reason why we're staying behind is because, you know, when we die, if we die awake, if we die connected with our soul, we actually do leave this planet. Unless we choose to come back for whatever reason, but we actually do leave this planet. The problem is no one's been able to leave this planet for thousands of years because the situation of life has been such that people just haven't had the resources to wake up, even though there may have been wiser souls. So the amount of people who are wise enough and woken enough, there's always been the flame's always been lit in this planet. But the amount was always so tiny, just a tiny, tiny amount. Anyway, so there are souls who've come into this planet, especially for this event, to help all of us to wake up so that we can depart. But some of them will not make it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's about 25,000 souls who will not make it, in the sense that right at the very end, they will not have woken up, because it doesn't matter how advanced a soul you are. If you die in disassociated from within yourself in trauma, you're fated to come back and repeat the thing. You know, you don't go anywhere. You keep coming back. And so about 200 million of us will be staying behind to sorry,
It's okay.
gets me every time. To keep the light burning, to keep that flame going, to generate that feeling energy, to give them a chance to wake up. They will not go away from the planet. They will die here with the rest of us. However, we're staying so that they will wake up in time. And most of them will make it. There'll be about 6,500 who won't. But from our perspective, it's worth it, because although we will die in this planet, we won't stay in this planet because we are awake. And so it doesn't matter. I mean, it would have been nice to meet the aliens, to go with the aliens. But for me, certainly it's not going to happen. And we make the choice. We make the choice. We're going to stay behind. And some of us will be in the southern mountains of Spain, somewhere between Madrid and Jerez, Malaga, that sort of area, somewhere. I don't know yet where. I haven't chosen the area yet. I haven't asked Charlie exactly where it is. It'll be about 3 years or so from now that I'll start looking.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
okay.
So that's the end times.
Okay. Well, there's nothing.
Yeah.
What's interesting, although there could be two completely different stories, that there are so many parallels between what Charlie's giving you and what the emissaries tell me. The emissaries don't, they haven't gone into spaceships and everything, because let me tell you what happened about a year, maybe a year, 2 years ago. I did a video with somebody who had a very, very big following, and I was inundated with people who were going to, who wanted to go to the higher self in hypnosis. And the majority of them were waiting to be taken up on a spaceship. The majority of them were saying, I'm just waiting. I would say, hey, I'm busy. I'm booked for 3 months ahead, so I can only give you an appointment in 3 months. It's no good because I'm going to be taken up on a spaceship. Okay. so I'll not have the appointment. And I said, well, do you want me to make it just in case? And they go, no. So, and of course that didn't happen. And I asked the emissaries about that, and they said, that's not what we talk about. That's not our business. You know, whatever those plans are, that's not their remit. As they say, their remit is to come here with a message. They've been sent by God. That's it. That's their message. It's a very spiritual one. So they don't go into details and they don't go into dates and stuff like that. But everything you described is very much what they say, without the details, I suppose. Yeah.
And how can it be otherwise? Because we're all connecting to the same source, although it may depend, we're all at the mercy of the structures of our ego, what our personality, what we've learned. I can only ask questions according to my perceptions, to my experiences, to what I've learned, to what I've heard, and to what I can imagine. If I cannot imagine it, then it is beyond my remit.
And you have no questions to ask. There are no questions that come to you. Yeah.
So you've got to be able to ask the questions.
Yeah.
And I ask a lot of questions. However, over the years, I've noticed, there are so many, there have been so many of us out there who have separated from our ego structures, because the ego structures, they limit us.
Mm-hmm.
And by definition, and once we can sort of move into the creative part of ourselves, into our imagination, we're now open to something from beyond us, whatever that is. And so many people have been able to do this over the years, to a greater or lesser extent. And so the same information is out there, just waiting to come through to anyone that is ready to listen, I suppose.
Yeah. What I'm told, what the emissaries tell me, is that they want to, and they use they, but they're talking about all of the light beings whose job it is to connect with us, and they're saying that they want to connect with as many people as possible. But what's happening is people are not leaving that space. They're not leaving that space. Everything. I'm sure the archons, the critters, whatever you want to call them, they know that. They know that people must not have any break from constant thought. Otherwise, the beings are going to come through. And so we're kept busy all of the time. And as you were saying, if we're in the sympathetic nervous system, we're in fight or flight. It's very difficult to slow the mind when you're in fight or flight. It's very difficult.
Impossible.
Yeah, you can't get centered. And so this is the situation now we've got. What they said is, we are there waiting like this, waiting for people just to slow the mind down, and so, my message to people is, walk in the countryside, do something, get away, leave your phone and just walk or just sit, and you don't have to do anything particularly grand for them to come through now. The vibration, the energy now, the veil is very thin now, I think, compared to how it has been. It's been very thick, and only extremely enlightened people could get through. But the veil's very thin now, and so they'll come through if you let them. It's very important, I think.
More people are doing this. More people are spending time meditating.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a bit of a joke, because when I was in my 20s and I was learning meditation, I remember I'd gone away to this group for a year, and we were still doing all these practices. And we were I remember one particular evening that we'd been meditating together as a group. Then everybody left, and I sat there, stayed there meditating.
Forcing it.
Yeah, I was really meditating. But, it wasn't real meditation. It was ego will. It was my ego just forcing me, but it was a pressure to be present, but still lost within my ego.
Yeah.
Still lost within my ego. Whereas a moment of truth, for example, once I was with my wife and we were just sitting. It was a nice sunny summer day. There was this brook running down the hill. There was a lovely space to sit on the side. We were just sitting there and it was lovely and warm. We just laid there. And I was laying there listening to the bubbling of the water. Suddenly, thoughts of my mother came to the fore. And before I knew it, boom, I was having an emotional cathartic release, because suppressed emotions from my past, in that moment of utter stillness and peace, it was there all the time, but now it just came to the foreground. And I cried, and I felt so much better for that.
Sure.
And that's what we don't allow ourselves. This is how we keep busy, so that we don't have to experience those intense emotions which are waiting in the background, but we won't go there because it's intense. We don't want to know.
Yeah.
And that is what stops us from really connecting with anything else, because we're never truly at peace in ourselves. We're always holding back the hordes, all the emotions.
Absolutely. I mean, I spent a lot of my time working with people, and I work with people's emotions. The emotions are what control us. They can make us or break us, and so many people hold back. I recall, as and probably you do this, when you look back on your life and you think, yeah, wow, that was, everything happened for a reason to me so that I can be where I am now, and I recall one day, I'd had a bad experience with my mom, with my stepfather. I came home and I sat on the couch and I just sat, just kind of thinking about what had happened this awful night. And as I sat there, I just burst into tears and I started to cry, but it wasn't like silent tears. It was full, racking, sobbing tears. And I cried for 3 hours without stop. My wife was thinking that she was going to have to get an ambulance or whatever. And I just kept saying to her, no, I'm fine. I'm just crying. Just let me do it. Because I knew it was like, I don't know, 40 years of suppressed emotion just coming out. And I believe that was a fundamental moment in my shift to be open to new stuff. Once you can get rid of that baggage, you can start seeing, the real you, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
When I was in my late 20s, as I was training to be a spiritual healer, I was in this group, and the guiding members of the group, they were raising the energy of the room, and they wanted us to see whether we could actually connect with archetypal beings, anything beyond us. And so I was sitting there and I was really working at this. I was like trying to move out of myself to sort of like, and I couldn't do it. And what was most interesting is these people could see it. They could see my efforts. They could see that I was trying to expand, but my ego was so locked in, so tight, that I just could not let go. I just couldn't let go of myself, let go of myself.
Sure. Let yourself go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is where we are now. And whatever the end result, I believe the message right now is we need to get to know ourselves, know thyself. We need to work on ourselves. We need to help ourselves to become much more than what we are. But as you say, not from an ego place. Not the ego, the way the ego works, the old ego, so I was told this, it constantly makes comparisons. It's always comparing. The ego always compares. So it's either, I'm better than you, or even worse for the ego, you've done something that's better than me. And the ego is always making this comparison outside of itself. Whereas the ascended ego, the only comparison it would ever make is, how are you now compared to how you were before? Have you improved? Excellent. That's the only comparison that we should ever make. Right. Because our journey is a journey, personal journey of self-improvement. And so we always must, yes, we must make comparisons, but only on, this week, have I been the best version of myself that I can be? And if not, what can I do next week to be that best version? It's always the self, because this is who we are. We're not anybody else. It's not our job to be or to be better than anybody else. Everyone's here just on their journey. So I think that's where we are. For your plan, for the emissaries plan, I suppose for everybody, is just, what have I got to do to get in touch with the very best version of who I am? Which is the ascension, I suppose.
Yeah. And for this, you use psychotherapy, hypnotherapy.
I use anything I can. I use with my clients principally hypnotherapy, NLP, the neuro-linguistic programming, because that's really a really fantastic tool for helping you. But combined with hypnosis, it's beautiful. And then I use other things. What you were talking about, emotional release. There are lots of techniques that allow you to release emotionally. There's a technique called havening, which is beautiful. The technique called EFT, you might be aware of it, the tapping. Yeah. And also eye movement integration as well. So all of those techniques are great for helping people to get rid of. But if you don't want to get rid of emotion, this is meaningless. It's meaningless if you're not going to be able to face up to the emotion. The only time I haven't been able to help people is when they won't go to the emotion. You say, how do you feel about that? Well, I feel naturally angry. You go, well, I hear the words, but I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it, So my job really in the first few sessions is to give people to help them to relax enough so that they can feel comfortable showing their emotions. Because once the emotions, that's it. Now we're onto a winner. Once the emotions come through, now we can start to shift them. Yeah.
There's no shortcut to emotional intensity. So like all of us, what holds us back as human beings is our unwillingness. It's not deliberate unwillingness, but we just don't go there. We won't experience emotional intensity or mental intensity, as in like conflicting ideas. We run away from conflicting ideas. We don't want anything that questions our version of reality. We just can't go there. It's, like the pressure is too intense.
Yeah.
And so learning to experience, to be okay with that conflict, mental conflict, or with that emotional intensity, that is in my opinion, the crunch of the matter. And that you cannot force on people.
No.
It has to happen organically, because you cannot, if you've got a weakened immune system, not immune system, nervous system, if you've got a weakened nervous system, then if you are given an intense emotional experience, you'll just switch off because you'll just overload the system.
Yeah. So
this is why we have to go baby steps. We can only experience what is at the surface, close to our awareness. Whatever is there, what this is like. As soon as you relax, whatever comes to the surface, that's what you're ready to deal with.
Yeah.
But people want to deal with big stuff, and it's not possible. You have to work your way slowly from the top. because gradually, as you clear the top, the rest goes up, and your nervous system gets stronger and stronger. Your capacity to stay focused on conflicting mental belief systems, ideologies, gets stronger. And it's a process, isn't it? It's a process.
Sure.
And so I get people who come to me, they want help with this or that symptom. But you can't help them because the symptom is the tip of the iceberg, underneath which is some really painful emotions, which they don't want to go there. They're not ready to go there.
Yeah.
So.
Sure, it's really interesting what you're saying, because what I've discovered over time, when I first started therapy, people would come because they wanted to stop smoking. They were scared of flying. They had fear of spiders, things of that nature. They wanted to lose weight. And what I discovered over time was that now I don't work with people on those levels. Now I work on a very emotional level. And my work's almost like spiritual life coaching. I think that's probably the only way I describe it, which is, let's take a look at your life and where do you think you are, on your ascension process. But what I learned very quickly was this: what the client presents to you as their problem has nothing to do with the problem that they really have. And so what I've learned to do is to not believe my client at the beginning. You mustn't believe them, and I don't mean that in a horrible way. I mean, they come and they say, my marriage is a mess, and I don't know what to do in my life. So can you help me to do some counseling to sort my marriage out? So I think we need to look beyond that. That's just a symptom. As you said, it's just a symptom of something else. And so what invariably where we end up going at the beginning is back, because the first 6 years of our life are so fundamental in marking us and making us, that if they're great, fantastic. If they're not great, there's a lot of stuff that needs to get sorted. But the first 11 years of our life, we actually spend 11 years of our life in hypnosis. We're in, when you measure the brainwave patterns, we're in hypnosis. So what happens is, to be able to fix that, you've got to go into hypnosis again, because that's where the damage is. It's like modern psychology of talking is like the problem's in the bedroom and you're in the living room chatting to the person. No, you've got to go in the bedroom. You've got to open that door and go in and have a look at that. So it's kind of like as you say, you've got to dig down and you've got to go get to the deeper ones. People aren't willing to do that, and in the first session, quite often they need to have some trust. I say to people, don't tell me all your dirty, dark secrets in the first session. You don't need to. Save it for the second session. And this guy, they go, phew. Or I say, in hypnosis, you are completely in control, because some people believe that when they're in hypnosis, they're going to say all of these things. They're going to be out of control. Of course they're not. Of course they're not. But it's scary. It's scary. We all have all of our skeletons in our closets that we try to hide away, don't we?
Yeah. So here we are, two souls trying to save humanity in our own separate ways.
Yeah.
Good luck with that, because sometimes I despair, to be honest.
Well, the way I look at it is this, Sal. I was given a message to give. I'm going to give that message as best that I can, with as much passion and as much grace as I can. But it's only a message. It's one side of an equation. The other side is that people have to pick that message up and go with it, and then do their own work and find their own guides and all of that. So it's kind of, at the beginning, I had this big weight of responsibility, and now I think, well, no, I can only do what I can do, and the only job I've got is to sort me out. And this, the beautiful thing, and I'm sure you find it, as I'm progressing, the more you try to help people, the more you help yourself. It's a cyclical thing. When you push out help, help comes back to where the universe works. And so it's been a beautiful journey for me. But I know that, you know, we can only do so much. We can only do so much. And after that, it's down to everybody else and everything else.
Well, the good thing is that it's not just you and me, of course. There is millions of people out there who are doing as we're doing, you know, in our own separate ways. You know, there is hope. There is hope.
Oh, there's absolutely hope. I sometimes you use the word despair. Sometimes I find myself very frustrated with how long it's taking. But of course, in the scheme of things, it's not that long. It's not taking that long. I kind of became awake to what was happening, let's say, 20 years ago. And so for me, it's been, you know, some people have just become aware of since 2020. And you know, they're raging. So it's kind of like I've had time to come to terms with it. But sometimes I think, oh, for goodness sake, let's just have a little bit of a break. You know, let's have a break. Let's have a Kit Kat and you know, and a cup of coffee, and you know, give us a moment. But there are no moments at the moment. It's just bam, 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 bam. So it can be very frustrating.
It is. It is.
Mm.
Okay. Well, how shall we finish this? Any last words you'd like to?
Okay. Well, last words are, we chose to be here. That's what I firmly believe. That's what I'm told. We chose to be here. So even though at times it feels uncomfortable, it feels like, what on earth am I doing here in this madness? If we just step out of the victim and become the victor and realize that we chose this, we chose to experience this. And so no matter how bad it might seem, we knew what we were getting into before we got into it. We just forgotten, that's all. And so we just have to keep reminding ourselves, hey, you know, I did come here for a good reason.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. It's been lovely speaking with you.
Thank
and
you.
I hope to speak with you in the near future.
Yeah, and let's see if we maybe do a session in Spanish for the Spanish.
Yeah, I'm game. I'm game.
That'd be nice. Yeah, slightly toned down level probably, but you know, all the same. Okay.
All right,
Tal.
Thank you very much, Gordon.
Take
Nice
care.
to speak with you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.